Hello everyone and welcome back to Crafts by the Bow. This weekend I was trying to sort out some cards that I need for work, and I've worked out that I need about 12 or 15 cards for everybody that's at work with me. And I thought I would give a try to the one sheet wonder again. I've done this many times and I've copied other people's designs. And I know roughly which kind of cards I make now and what works for me. And I was watching my friend Gaynor Boyce, who has Stamp with Joy, Facebook and YouTube. And she was making a one sheet wonder that made 14 cards. And I thought, got it, I'll do that and that'll be all my cards made. I started to cut my paper and then I remembered that she's in the UK and our paper sizes are different. So I abandoned that idea and I couldn't actually find the one sheet wonder that I really wanted to use. So I decided to design my own. This is my template. I made it from 2 sheets of the grid paper so that I could make it 12 by 12. And I thought about what kind of cards I like to use and which shapes I use. And so as you can see here, it's very rough. I will put a better picture of it on my blog, but it's got all of my 14 cards in sizes that I know work for me. And I'll show you how to cut this and then I'll show you the cards that I made. So let me just get my trimmer. Just gone walkabout, here it is. And if you have a directional paper, this side isn't so bad. This side is only a one-way design. So if you have a directional paper, work out which side you want to use as your main piece. And then if you use the backing, work out which way you want that pattern to run as well. So the first thing, I'm going to turn it that way. The first thing I'm going to do is to cut at 5 1/4 all the way down my paper. And then I need a 1 1/4 piece. So I'm going to line this up at 1 1/4 and cut down. And then this piece should be 5 1/2. Yes. So I'm going to start with the top row of cards. So this is the 5 1/2 piece, and you can see it's easy to cut the 3 strips and work on 1 strip at a time. So my first piece that I need is going to be the 5 1/2 by 3. Now this DSP has been one of my absolute favourites, and I really begrudge using a lot of it on any one card. So this is just ideal. Means you can make 14 cards, each have a little piece of the DSP on it, and you know, very little waste. So here's the second piece cut at 5 1/2 by 3, and then my next piece I need to cut at 4, and I'm going to cut it diagonally. So I'm going to line the corner up in the little track here and the bottom corner. I'm going to hold it. Okay, so that just leaves on that strip 1 piece, and we're going to cut it in half. And this is a 2-inch piece, so I'm going to line it up with the 1-inch mark and just cut it in half. So there's my first strip cut. My second strip is the smaller one, and we need 6 pieces that are 1 1/4 inch squares. So I'm going to line it up with the right hand side this time, just because it's easier to see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And that leaves 1 piece that's for a different card. So let's put those over to the side. And then we've just got left the 5 1/4 width strip. And this I'm going to cut at 2 1/2. Don't worry about the measurements, I will put them on my blog. Then I'm going to cut it at 4 and I'm just going to turn it over, and I'm going to make a mark at 1 inch down on this side and 1 inch up from the bottom at this side, and cut straight across. So I'm just going to gauge where the 1 inch is, and again on the other side. Now you could do this in pencil and then erase it, but honestly I don't think you'll see a tiny mark. So then I'm going to line up the 2 little marks in the cutter again. Hold on to this, cut it, and then we've got our 2 shapes. And the next piece, let me see which is the 5 1/4 side. That side. I'm going to cut at 1 1/2, and I'm going to cut 2 pieces at 1 1/2. 1, 2, and that will leave you a piece 5 1/4 by 2 1/2. So there are all of my strips. Now, rather than go through and make each card for you, what I'm going to do is show you what I actually made with the pieces. So my first piece was 5 1/2 by 3 with no borders, and the second piece is exactly the same. And this is what I made. So here are the 5 1/2 by 3 pieces, and what I did was I put a little bit of Night of Navy card at the top and the bottom, and then another little piece on top. And what I did was I used all of my little bits and pieces. You know, I often talk about my scrap bin, and my scrap bins I keep in these little envelopes, and it's all tiny pieces of things that I've cut out, not used, things that I've got left over, I've punched too many, and I find them really, really useful for these kind of cards, because it's like you're getting 12 cards for very little work, at 14 in this case. So there's my 1 and 2 cards. This thanks, I think, is from the Paper Pumpkin set. It's the one that had congrats and thanks. And I didn't make all the cards as the instructions said, so that's where these 2 have come from. And these were from the Grateful Blossoms or Grateful Blooms that had the punch that you could stamp the 3 flowers and then punch them out all together. I don't actually have that set anymore, so I'm not quite sure how long they've been lurking in the bag. But there's 1 and 2. Now number 3 is the one that we cut, let me get it, the one that we cut diagonally, and you can change the sides over. What I did with those was I put them across the card, and then I realised that actually the piece goes to the very edge at the right hand side but not at the bottom, and because I wanted it to look like it was cut on the diagonal, I put a piece of ribbon over. Oops. And then this is from the Daisy Punch, and these, I think they might be from Botanical Blooms. I think it was the stamens and things for one of the flowers. And again, I've used one of those Paper Pumpkin sentiments, and this is the You Are Wonderful from the Rooted in Nature set. So number 5 was the 2 strips, and what I did was I put them on the card, and I didn't like them portraits way, so I turned it over to make it landscape. And this little pear, it's from one of the very old sets that has a peach and a pear and things on, and I'd used them at Christmas to make some little boxes that I put candles in, and so I just took one of those out. So number 6 uses 3 of the 1 1/4 inch squares, these little ones, and I made it go this way. Oh, that needs gluing down again. These are little petite petals punch, but I don't know where the yellow glittery paper's from. It certainly wasn't Stampin' Up. I can't remember where I got that from. And the sentiment on this little oval was from Beautiful Bouquet. Number 7 is the same, that I used the little squares again, but I overlapped them and then used another one of those thanks sentiments from the paper pumpkin. Number 8 was this smaller piece of paper. Let's see if I can just find it here. I've muddled them all up a bit now, so I can't just see which one it is. Is it that one? Yes. Okay, so it's just this smaller piece, and I backed it on black card, and I'd been making things with the tranquil tulips, and you can see actually I had a few bits and pieces left, and I just took one of the ones that said it's your day, and yeah, and just made it another little way to use the background so that you could still see the DSP paper, but really the main event are the tulips on that one. So that was number 8. Number 9 was a 5 1/4 by 2.5 inch piece, and this is what I made with it. So I just put Night of Navy underneath, and then I can't remember what this flower was from, but I have a little vellum leaf left over, and these beads for the centers of the flowers, I've got another one here. I think I bought them from eBay or something a while back, and I still had a few left over, and then I just made 2 little ovals for the sentiment. And number 10 and 11 are the 2 pieces that are cut where you go down an inch, up an inch, and cut across like this. And I like the shape of this on the cards. So here's the first card, number 10, and I backed the DSP with navy. I used some more of those grateful blossoms or grateful blooms and the little jar from Jar of Love, and I like that one. That was one of my favourites out of the whole set. And then the other one that I made with it, I turned the paper over, and so it looks totally different. And then I just used one of my leftover daisies that I'd punched out, and it's actually coloured in, I think it was with Soft Sky, and you can't really tell on there. It just matches in quite nicely. And numbers 12 and 13 were strips 5 1/4 by 1.5, and I used one portrait and one landscape. And you can see these were more of the blooms from the grateful blossoms, and this little basket I think was left over from the Easter set, the little Easter bunny set. And then again I've used this from the daisy punch, and I must admit I didn't make anything specially for this. I used all pieces that were cut out. The only things I did were punched out shapes or did my printing and things. So that's 12 and 13. And last of all, number 14 was a 5 1/4 by 2.5 inch piece of paper. I turned it over so that you could see the backing, and just added a piece of card, and then a picture that I had made from Artistically Asian. So I hope you agree it's really easy to make these 14 cards and to have all the shapes ready. I had a really nice 3/4 of an hour after all the paper was cut, just playing about with shapes and diamantes and pearls and trying to find things that sort of worked with the paper. And I think really for that one sheet of paper, I did get my money's worth. The only other thing I used was scraps for backing, and then I had 7 pieces of the Whisper White card to do for, you know, the card itself. And then I'll need 14 envelopes, and that's a really, really easy set. Now, while I was doing this, I thought I could do this for maybe one of my card classes, but my ladies don't have lots and lots of scraps always available. So I thought instead of using a 12 by 12, I would try and make a 6 by 12. Now often when I get my DSP, I will cut it up. So I'll cut it up and keep it at 6 by 6 and keep all the little scraps in as well. And I thought what I could do is to get my 12 by 12 sheet, cut it in half and keep one half packed ready for doing my one card wonder. Cut 2 into 6-inch pieces and then keep one piece also, or 2 pieces whole in case I needed a bigger sheet. So what I thought would work is if I designed it slightly differently and I made a 12 by 6. I will put this on my blog as well. And I know the cards that I really liked were this shape. So I've kept that one on here. I liked the ones with the strips. I liked these kind of strips. And these wider strips. So these are the 2.5-inch strips. And then this one here is the narrower 1.5-inch strip. So I've got the diagonal ones that I really like, 2 of this sort, and then I've got 3 squares, and I made them slightly bigger than the ones on here. So I can still lay them out like this and maybe just not put the border around, or I could overlap them like I had here. And then last of all, I wanted to try one where I had like 3 strips. So I could maybe have 3 strips going across here or across here. So I'm going to experiment with that. I'm going to cut it out and make the cards and see how it goes at card class as well. I think this is quite an economical one to use for card class because your card ladies would only have half a piece of paper, half a piece of DSP, and then they would make 7 cards. So they would need 3.5 pieces of Whisper White or whichever colour you were using for your backing. And then I will put some of my odds and ends out for them, but otherwise I'm just going to put punches out and let them punch and design and see what they want to make. So I hope you'll give mine a go, and either the 6 by 12 or the 12 by 12. As I say, do excuse all the rough workings out and the Tipex where I changed my mind, but it does work and it makes 14 beautiful cards. Thanks again for watching me. I'll see you all again soon. Bye bye.